small town of Oakridge, people started to notice a figure wandering the streets at night. This shadowy silhouette seemed to glide rather than walk, and its eyes appeared empty, lifeless. The town had always been serene, but now fear gripped its residents. Sarah Phillips had never had sleepwalking issues before, but now she found herself waking up in odd places, on the porch, in the backyard, and once even in the middle of Main Street. Her husband, Ben, brushed it off as stress, but Sarah felt something more disturbing was happening. One evening, an old man named Mr. Green approached Sarah with a grave warning. He spoke of an ancient curse, a restless spirit that possessed people, making them relive its own torment. He urged Sarah to be cautious. That night, Sarah woke up soaked in sweat. She found herself in the kitchen, staring at an old family photograph. As she tried to shake off her confusion, she noticed a ghostly figure in the reflection of the window, a woman with hollow eyes standing right behind her. Sarah's sleepwalking episodes became more frequent and vivid. She began dreaming of a woman in a black dress, wandering through town and screaming in anguish. The dreams felt so real, and each time she woke, she found herself in a different part of the house. Ben started noticing bruises and cuts on Sarah's body. He grew increasingly worried and set up cameras around the house to monitor her. The footage revealed something terrifying. Sarah would get up, her eyes open but unseeing, and speak in a voice that wasn't hers. Determined to understand what was happening, Sarah and Ben dug into the town's history. They discovered that their home was built on the site of an old asylum, where a woman named Evelyn had died under mysterious circumstances. She had been a sleepwalker, tormented by visions of her own demise. One night, Ben woke to find Sarah missing from their bed. He followed her trail to the forest behind their house, where he found her standing on the edge of a cliff, swaying dangerously. As he approached, Sarah turned to him, her eyes glowing with an eerie light. Sarah, or rather the spirit possessing her, began to speak. She revealed that Evelyn had been wrongfully accused of witchcraft and tortured to death in the asylum. Her spirit had remained restless, seeking justice through anyone who crossed her path. Ben pleaded with Evelyn to release Sarah, but the spirit was relentless. It wasn't until he promised to uncover the truth about her death and clear her name that Evelyn's grip on Sarah began to loosen. Sarah collapsed, unconscious but alive. Over the next few weeks, Ben and Sarah worked tirelessly to uncover Evelyn's story. They found old records and testimonies that proved her innocence. They shared their findings with the town, and a memorial was erected in Evelyn's honor. Despite their efforts, Sarah continued to experience occasional sleepwalking episodes. One night, she found herself in the attic, standing before an old trunk. Inside, she discovered Evelyn's diary, detailing the horrors she had endured. Sarah felt a connection to Evelyn's words, and as she read the final entry, she sensed a presence in the room. Evelyn appeared, her ghostly form now calm and serene. She thanked Sarah for giving her a voice and slowly faded away. With Evelyn's spirit at peace, the sleepwalking episodes ceased. Sarah and Ben moved away from Oakridge, hoping to leave the past behind. However, the experience had changed them forever, and they often wondered if they had truly seen the last of Evelyn. The legend of Evelyn, the Night Wanderer, became a part of Oakridge's history. Some say her spirit still roams the streets at night, but now she is seen as a guardian, protecting the town that finally acknowledged her truth. Elm Street was a peaceful suburb where families lived in comfort and safety. That changed when the Martinez family moved into the old house at the end of the street. Almost immediately, their son, Danny, began sleepwalking. Danny spoke of a shadow girl who visited him at night and led him on adventures around the house. His parents, Maria and Carlos, thought it was just a phase, but the details Danny shared were unsettlingly vivid and specific. One evening, Maria found Danny standing in the basement, pointing at the floor. He insisted the shadow girl told him there was something hidden there. When Carlos investigated, he found a small rusted key buried under the concrete. The key opened a hidden compartment in the attic, revealing old toys and dusty books. Among them was a diary belonging to a girl named Lily, who had lived in the house decades ago. Her entries spoke of a shadowy figure that haunted her dreams. As Maria and Carlos read more, Danny's sleepwalking intensified. He began waking with scratches and bruises, and his descriptions of the shadow girl grew more detailed and frightening. Maria and Carlos realized something supernatural was at play. They learned that Lily had vanished without a trace. The town's rumor mill suggested she had run away, but her diary hinted at something far darker, a malevolent presence that had tormented her until she disappeared. Determined to protect Danny, Maria and Carlos reached out to a local historian, Mrs. Whitmore. She revealed that the house had a dark history, with each of its former residents experiencing tragedy. The shadow girl was believed to be Lily's spirit, trapped and seeking help. One night, Maria woke to find Danny standing at the foot of their bed, his eyes glowing with an unnatural light. He spoke in a deep, otherworldly voice, warning them to leave or suffer the same fate as Lily. The haunting was escalating. Mrs. Whitmore suggested that the spirit could be released through a ritual involving burning Lily's diary and cleansing the house with holy water. Desperate, Maria and Carlos agreed, hoping it would free Danny from the spirit's influence. As they performed the ritual, the house seemed to come alive. Objects flew off shelves, and a chilling wind howled through the rooms. The shadow girl appeared, her form dark and menacing. She reached for Danny, but Maria shielded him, chanting prayers with all her might. The shadow girl's fury was palpable, but Maria's determination was stronger. She continued the ritual, and slowly the spirit began to weaken. With a final, agonizing scream, the shadow girl dissipated into the air, leaving the house eerily silent. In the following days, Danny's sleepwalking ceased, and he gradually returned to his cheerful self. Maria and Carlos felt a weight lifted from their shoulders, but the memory of the shadow girl lingered in their minds. The Martinez family decided to leave Elm Street, unable to bear the thought of staying in the haunted house. They sold it to a new family, warning them of its dark history. Whether the new owners believed them or not, they didn't care. They just wanted to be free. Years later, rumors persisted of strange occurrences in the old house on Elm Street. Some claimed to see a shadowy figure at the windows, while others heard whispers in the night. The legend of the shadow girl lived on, a reminder of the terror that once plagued the Martinez family. Despite the lingering rumors, the Martinez family found peace in their new home. They often thought of Lily, hoping she had found the rest she deserved. Though their experience was behind them, they knew they would never forget the whispering shadows of Elm Street. The Carters were excited to move into Briarwood Estate, a grand, historic property. The house had been vacant for years, and they saw it as a chance to start anew. But the estate held dark secrets that were about to surface. On their first night, Anna Carter woke up to find her husband, Mark, standing at the foot of the bed, staring at her with vacant eyes. She called out to him, but he didn't respond. Instead, he turned and walked out of the room, as if in a trance. Mark's sleepwalking continued night after night. He would wander through the house, muttering to himself and performing strange rituals. Anna grew increasingly worried, especially when she found him in the basement, surrounded by old, dusty artifacts. Anna started researching the history of Briarwood Estate. She discovered that the original owner, Reginald Briarwood, had been a reclusive and eccentric man. Rumor had it that he practiced dark magic and conducted unholy experiments in the basement. One night, Anna followed Mark during one of his sleepwalking episodes. He led her to a hidden room in the basement, filled with ancient books and occult symbols. Mark stood in the center, chanting in a language she didn't recognize. Anna tried to wake Mark, but he was unresponsive. Suddenly, he turned to her, his eyes black as coal, and spoke in a deep, otherworldly voice. "Leave this place, or suffer the same fate as Reginald Briarwood." Anna felt a cold chill run down her spine. Desperate, Anna sought help from a local priest, Father Matthews. He warned her that the estate was cursed and that Reginald Briarwood's spirit was still bound to the house. The only way to free Mark was to break the curse. Father Matthews explained that Reginald had made a pact with a demon for eternal life, but the ritual went wrong, binding his spirit to the estate. Anyone who lived there would eventually fall under his influence, doomed to repeat his dark rituals. Father Matthews proposed a risky plan to exorcise Reginald's spirit. They needed to find the original ritual book and reverse the incantation. Anna and the priest began their search, scouring the hidden room in the basement for clues. As they performed the counter-ritual, the house seemed to come alive with Reginald's malevolent energy. Objects flew off shelves, and unearthly wails filled the air. Mark, still possessed, attacked Father Matthews, but Anna managed to hold him back. The ritual reached its climax, and Reginald's spirit manifested before them, a grotesque figure of rage and despair. Father Matthews chanted the final incantation, and Anna threw a vial of holy water at the spirit. Reginald let out a blood-curdling scream and vanished into the ether. Mark collapsed to the floor, unconscious. When he woke, his eyes were clear, and he had no memory of the past few weeks. Anna hugged him tightly, relieved that the nightmare was over. But the house felt different, as if a heavy weight had been lifted. With Reginald's spirit banished, the Carters decided to stay at Briarwood Estate. They renovated the house, erasing the traces of its dark past. Father Matthews continued to visit, blessing the house regularly to ensure no remnants of the curse remained. One evening, as Anna walked through the garden, she saw a faint figure at the edge of the property. It was Reginald, but he looked peaceful, no longer the tormented soul they had encountered. He nodded at her, then faded away, finally at rest. The Carters never experienced any more supernatural events, but the story of Briarwood Estate became a local legend. Visitors often spoke of feeling a strange presence, and some even claimed to see a ghostly figure at the windows. The estate's dark history was never truly forgotten. The Thompsons moved to Ravenwood, seeking peace and quiet. Their new home was an old farmhouse, isolated from the bustling city life they had left behind. The house, though charming, had a reputation for being haunted. Shortly after moving in, their son Timmy began sleepwalking. His parents, Rachel and David, would find him wandering the fields at night, murmuring about the children. Concerned, they tried to keep him safe, but his nightly excursions became more frequent. Timmy's sleepwalking episodes were accompanied by eerie whispers. He would speak of children playing in the fields and a woman calling out to them. Rachel and David dismissed it as dreams, but the details were too vivid to ignore. David researched the history of Ravenwood and discovered that, decades ago, several children had gone missing in the area. Their disappearances were never solved, and local legends claimed their spirits roamed the fields, seeking their way home. One night, David followed Timmy into the fields. He saw him standing near an old oak tree, surrounded by ghostly figures of children. They were translucent, with hollow eyes and sorrowful expressions. Timmy seemed to be communicating with them. Timmy revealed that he had been dreaming of a woman named Margaret, who lost her children in a tragic accident. Margaret's spirit was restless, unable to move on until her children were found. Timmy felt a strong connection to her and wanted to help. Through his dreams, Timmy learned that Margaret's children had drowned in a nearby river. Their bodies were never recovered, and Margaret had died of a broken heart. Her spirit lingered, bound by grief and the need to reunite with her children. Timmy convinced Rachel and David to help him find the children's remains. They followed clues from his dreams, leading them to the riverbank. There, they found remnants of an old bridge and pieces of clothing that matched the descriptions in Margaret's story. As they dug deeper, they unearthed the skeletal remains of the children. The ghostly figures appeared, their expressions shifting from sorrow to relief. Margaret's spirit also manifested, weeping tears of joy at being reunited with her children. Margaret thanked Timmy and his parents for their help. She and the children began to fade, their spirits finally at peace. But before leaving, Margaret warned them that the house was still haunted by another, more malevolent presence. Timmy's sleepwalking ceased, but the house's atmosphere grew increasingly oppressive. Strange noises echoed through the halls and objects moved on their own. David saw shadows lurking in the corners, and an overwhelming sense of dread filled the air. The Thompsons sought help from a paranormal investigator, Dr. Harris. He discovered that the farmhouse had once belonged to a cruel landowner, Henry Miller, who had tormented the local children. His spirit was bound to the house, feeding on the fear of its occupants. Dr. Harris performed a cleansing ritual to banish Henry's spirit. As the ritual progressed, the house shook violently, and a ghostly figure of Henry appeared, raging and defiant. He attacked Dr. Harris, but Rachel and David joined forces to drive him back. With a final, desperate effort, they completed the ritual. Henry's spirit let out a piercing scream and dissolved into nothingness. The house fell silent, the oppressive atmosphere lifting instantly. The Thompsons felt a sense of calm for the first time in months. With the malevolent spirit gone, the Thompsons decided to stay at Ravenwood. They turned the farmhouse into a welcoming home, free of its haunted past. The spirits of the lost children and their mother were at peace, and the Thompsons could finally enjoy the tranquility they had sought. The legend of Ravenwood lived on, but now it was a story of redemption and peace.